Welcome to Live Free. I'm Angela K. Austin. Together, we'll discuss books, we'll explore the world, and we'll do it with some of my closest friends. And hopefully, we'll make new ones along the way.
Hey everybody, this is Angela K. Austin, and today I am here with my girl, Olivia Gaines. Say hi to everybody, Olivia.
Hey everybody.
All right. So you guys know I talk about it all the time. When you are in the indie circuit, you meet a ton of people. And let me tell you, one of the first times that I remember meeting you, Olivia, I don't know if you're going to remember this. I don't even know what event it was at, but I was on some
IRAE.
Was it RAE?
Yes,
But
it
I
was.
was on some panel talking about something. And after that panel, Olivia walked up to me and she gave me a compliment. And she was like, I can't remember what you said exactly, but I remember you gave me a compliment and you were like, whatever it was I said, you were like, you did that. And I was like, I never forgot you because of that. And it was like literally one of those things, guys, because when you're on panels and you're talking to other indie authors or readers, but when you're talking to people about something that you love, there's always that little spot in your heart. You're like, man, don't let these people say anything bad. Don't let them disagree with me. Don't let them whatever, because you're kind of pouring yourself out. So to have you come up there and to give me that confirmation after that panel, I never forgot that, madam. Thank you so much for that. Much love.
You're more than welcome. I don't think that as women, we encourage each other enough. I can admire what you do. I can applaud you if you're doing something great. Do you have a moment to show me how you did that? I don't have a problem asking. Or if somebody asks me, well, how are you doing that? I'll take the time. I'll share, because when one succeed, we all succeed.
I agree with that. 157.9%. I agree with that. Because, everything in life doesn't have to be a competition, and everything about my channel is about uplifting and, teaching and helping and just taking away some of that fear of something like what we both do. We do this. Yeah. And let's not forget, Olivia and I, we also hit USA Today together. So,
yes, we did. Yes, we did.
So, the power of doing it together.
Yes,
so,
ma'am.
Guys, so I had to have Olivia here, and I'm so thankful that she came to join me today. So let's get down to the nitty. Let's tell people who Olivia Gaines is, for those who don't know. Give us your elevator pitch.
My elevator pitch. I am Olivia Gaines, USA Today bestselling author of over 50 contemporary romances filled with heart and humor. And if you want to read my words, I suggest you start with Thursdays in Savannah. It has a little bit of everything. And that's who I am.
Wow. Okay, so since you mentioned that book, before we get to some of the other stuff, like why do you write and all that, you might as well tell us why we should start with that book, because I'm curious, since you mentioned that one specifically.
When I started writing, I was trying to figure out what my pocket was. And every author is always looking for their niche. Where's my niche? What am I doing? And that story, it was not my first novel, but it was the first novel where I got it right. Okay. Not only RIGHT, but WRITE as well. I had character development. I had story arcs. I had the characters grew by the end of the story. There was enough heat, but there was this wonderful, wonderful plot of a woman trying to figure out what was best for her. And these two men who were totally opposites. This is what I've always wanted, my house with the picket fence in this neighborhood. And then there's this guy. I like what this guy is bringing. So what do I do? And turns out the guy that she ended up picking had everything that she still wanted.
And tell us the name of it again.
It's Thursdays in Savannah. Her name is Savannah. His name is Jesse. And he comes over on Thursday nights.
He's got a regret.
You see me blinking. Little play on words.
I like it. Okay. All right. So before we get into some of your other books, tell us a little bit about why you write, because I like what you just said there. And, I've said this before, so anybody listening to the podcast or watching the channel, you guys have heard me say, like, as I've gotten, the longer I write, I feel like I become a better writer. I write
Yes.
more complicated stories, more intricate stories.
Yes.
Like when you first write, everybody always says, we write what we know. Like, is that you in the book, Angela? I'm like, no, I've never been married. I've never been pregnant. I don't know. It's not me,
Okay.
but people are like, oh, it's got to be you. I'm like, no, it's not
No,
me.
it's not.
But it's like, but as you do this, the longer you do it, you become better. You become more confident. You find your voice. You understand the tone of who you are as a writer.
Exactly.
And so I'm just like, tell me about that for you, because as you said that about this book, so tell me a little bit about you and your writing. Like, why did you ever get into it? Like, what made you say, I'm going to put a book out today?
I'm a journalist by trade. I started out as a journalist, overeducated myself to where I couldn't get the jobs that I really wanted it, because every time you interview, people see you as a threat. Oh, she's coming for my job. No, I just want a job. I got a mortgage to pay. So I was teaching, and after 3 years of re-socializing adults to re-enter the workplace, because that's what you have to do, I was burned out. And my husband said, you've been teaching people to write for years. Why don't you sit down and write something? So I was going through one of those sites where you see the pictures, and I saw this beautiful ebony skinned woman with this muscled guy. He was nibbling on her and she was naked. I'm like, that seems like something that would happen in Vegas. So I had my son create a cover, and I wrote this little novella and I put it out there. She had a peanut allergy. I had her eating a Snickers bar. I put it out there with typos, everything. Let's just see what's going to happen. And I came back 2 days later and had sold 500 copies. And then people were like reaching out to me, well, what happens next? And I'm like, oh, well, let me take this a little bit more serious. And then I sat down and start really looking at the stories that I wanted to tell of the women that I knew. Okay. I've read so many romance stories that she's waiting for some guy to come rescue her. And I remember at one of the IRAEs, they were talking about billionaire romances. And I raised my hand, I stood up, I said, I wrote a billionaire romance. Her name, Darlene. you know, I said, why does it always have to be him with the money? And so I started writing stories of these really accomplished women who wanted to do something a little different with their life, who wanted to take a chance and step out there and, maybe I don't want kids. Not everybody wants kids, and people don't understand that. There are some women who don't. And there's nothing wrong with that. How dare you try to tell me that I'm not happy being single? you know? And I wanted to write stories that encompassed all of our stories, not just this certain woman. And so that's how I kind of got started.
And it's really interesting when you say that, because I tell people all the time, it's like one of the things that we have in common, is, when I first started writing, it was because I didn't see enough of the brown skinned woman on the cover. She wasn't getting enough love from me.
Exactly.
And I wanted her to have, and I tell people all the time, it doesn't have to be some fantastical kind of love. I just wanted her to have a healthy, strong love, one that could survive something, whatever that something was. Like you said, she had a peanut allergy and you had her eating the Snickers.
Right.
I don't even know. I just wrote, I was just like, oh yeah, this is the external factor. This is the internal factor. That's all. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
Book, but, it's so funny when I think about it, but but it was that kind of thing that pushed me to make me want to write. And then when did that first book come out, Olivia? Because how long have you been doing this now?
I've been doing it for about 9.5 years.
Wow.
And I took a year to figure it out. Because with my marketing background, I'm like, okay, when that Las Vegas one came out, oh, it has too much sex in it. It has too much sex. Every other chapter, they getting it all. Okay, fine. I took out the sex and then I start writing the Blakemore Files. And I was at IRAE, and I think we were down to book 6. And I stood up and somebody asked me a question. And I said, well, the Blakemore Files have no sex. And you could have heard a rat carrying a piece of cotton. And I said, see there, you can't tell me I can't write. You're 6 books in and you never realize they don't have sex. He mentions he wants his breakfast and he wants his cocoa mounds, but they never, it's not on the page.
So tell me, like 9.5 years, people cannot tell you you can't write because they didn't notice,
Yes.
but what was that decision like for you when you decided to take the sex out? Because I've had this argument with some of my editors, right?
Okay.
Because
Okay.
I tell everybody I write, like if I describe myself to anyone as a writer, I will definitely say a fiction writer, but I would say women's fiction is more
Yes.
where I am most comfortable. So
And
people see
beautifully
my,
comfortable, if I may say.
thank you, madam.
Beautifully comfortable. I
Thank
have
you.
several. I have several. Yes.
And
I do.
Olivia's giving me some feedback, guys, because I tell you,
Yes.
I'm pulling some books back from from my last publisher. And one of them is a book that Olivia gave me some feedback on with the back cover blur. And I was like, yep, my publisher won't change it. But when I take the book back, I'm going to change it.
Yeah.
But that's where I'm comfortable. And it's really hard for me to say that I write complete romance. I think it's, who is it who coined the term women's romantic fiction? That's why I really say I'm much more comfortable. But I have a lot of editors who are like, oh, you should make this sexier. And I can make it sexier, but I don't necessarily want it to be because I'm trying to write in a certain lane. So
Yeah.
when you made that decision, how scary was that for you? Was it scary, or were you like, I'm gonna do this because I want to do it? And,
The beautiful thing about being an indie author, you can try some things. Okay. You can try some things and you'll find out immediately if it works or if it don't. When you're with a publisher, that book may sit on a shelf or go through this process that's 9 months long. And then by the time it comes out, you've already been through this whole process of cleansing yourself to write something different or write from a different spot in your soul. But when you're indie, you can feel that right away. You can feel it right away. And I think it was a great decision because I am technically a senior citizen. I don't want to write cock and furry animal stories. Okay. You can keep your chicken, your yard bird to yourself, and you can go pet your own little kitty because that's not who I am. I don't talk that way. I'm not comfortable even having the computer read it back to me, and I'm looking around like trying to make sure nobody could hear. Because even as an adult woman, I'm not comfortable saying and I just didn't want to write those kind of stories. So even what I write, it's more sensual. It's about the connection. I do have that one strong scene because, when you're talking about marketing and author branding, they're expecting that one intense scene. The rest of it, I kind of allude to, you know, because that's not the crux of the story. The crux of the story is this man and this woman finding their way to a long-term sustainable relationship.
And I love that. And I think, at first, because I was so new and I was with publishers, I would let them dictate it, because they would dictate the cover art, they would dictate whatever. Oh, we need to do this, this, and the other. And then when I went truly self-published indie, I would go by the editors because I'm using the editors that my friends use, editors who've been recommended, and editors like, oh yeah, Angela, I've edited 500 books. This is what sells. This is what makes my authors go number one, and you're like, okay, I don't want to have to make all the decisions myself. And so, you rely on what I call, part of your tribe, your team. These are people who have some knowledge about some stuff. And so you rely on that, but now I'm at the point where I'm like, you know what?
I need you.
I would do it.
Do it. grown. I got this.
You know,
Yeah.
and it's like it's it's so funny because I'm so much more comfortable, and this is what 13 years, 14 years in, but look at how long it took, because it's like you really, you have to go through those things. So for all of you indie authors out there who are new to this game, if you're self-publishing, truly self-publishing within the indie author realm,
Right.
take your chances, find your voice, find your niche, find the readers who are going to come to you as you are with the writing that you truly want to write. Don't feel like you have to be the next Olivia Gaines or the next Angela Chaos or the next whomever. Just truly find your own voice and do it your own way. And the readers who are about your voice will come to you. Let it happen.
Exactly.
Now why indie? And we're gonna get back to, because you guys heard her say, she's taught and she's done some marketing. I've taught and I have a master's in marketing as well. So we're gonna get back on that a little bit at the end. Okay. But before, because we're gonna pick out some little kernels of wisdom out of Olivia's brain before she goes, so you guys can get your marketing lessons. Okay, a little bit. And by the way, did you see me laugh when she said she was technically a senior citizen? Cracks me up. Look at her. So we're gonna give her kudos.
I am 55. I am 55 and a grandma.
Look, I'm not a grandma, but I have a birthday. By the time you guys see this, my birthday would have come and gone. Your girl would be 50.
Hey, looking fantastic.
It's like my model pose. Rock these 50s.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So now tell me, why indie? I have to ask everybody that, because we all have our own journey toward indie, and I know, like you said, you were doing this and doing that, and you decided to put that first book out, and that first book went, wild, and but why stay indie? Have you thought about becoming a hybrid, going with some of the larger publishers? Tell us a little bit about your indie journey.
I have considered going with some of the larger publishers because it takes the burden off of you, but it also takes away some of my freedom. If I decide this year that I'm only putting out 4 books, I'm only putting out 4 books. And I'm gonna go sit down and have some tea and play around with some ideas. As an indie author, I can decide what I want to release in the order I want to release, how I want to release it. And I'm only splitting the money one time. Normally I publish 6 to 8 books a year, but I have a regimen. It's not a routine, it's a regimen. Last year, I think I did 6. This year, I'm only doing 4, but I was closing out a series. And that's the thing, I write in series. So when you're writing in a series, you don't have to do complete world building every time you write a book. You're in the same world. So the readers already know what that world is, so you can just drop back in. I have a song that goes with each story that I write. So if I go wash dishes, do laundry, I come in, I put that song on, I'm back in that same mood, back in that same moment, back in that same thought. So I could just sit down and just 3,000 words a day. 3,000 words a day over 20 days, that's 60,000 words. That's a book. Exactly. And if you just give yourself an hour and a half in the morning to do 1,500, hour and a half in the evening to do 1,500, that's 3,000 words a day. If you have the goals, you can make it. And I like having my own money. I don't mind splitting it with Amazon or Draft to Digital, but I don't need to split it with Amazon, Draft to Digital, publisher, editor, publicist. It ain't that much money. I ain't selling that many books. Okay. So give me mine and leave me alone.
I'm with you on that. I mean, honestly, that is, and you guys have heard me talk about this before. Everybody out there, YouTube, we're podcast land, you've heard this. There's so many different types of publishers. And so when we talk about indie publishing, it simply means that we're not published by one of the major 5 publishers. But within indie publishing, you have indie publishers, right? Of which I've been with 3 over the years. The last one, I'm getting my books back from them now, which I plan to rewrite and re-release starting next year. Okay. So when you think about indie publishing or you think about self-publishing, like Olivia just said, who are you splitting that money with? And it could be, you can still be splitting with the publisher, and
Mhm.
and the publisher takes their money and they send it to the editors and then with the distributors. So you could do that, or you could do self-publishing, and like Olivia just said,
Yeah,
give us all our money,
right.
except for what you then pay out to formatters, or what you pay to graphic designers, or what you pay to editors and proofreaders. You then determine your budget and your ROI
Exactly.
for your
Exactly.
book. We're gonna
Because
give
people don't
some of that stuff from Olivia here in a second. So don't worry, guys. I'm not gonna leave you hanging.
because people don't realize when you go with a traditional publisher, if you're doing a paperback, a hardback book, you only get $1 per book sale, basically. If they give you a signing bonus of 85,000, then that's 85,000 over a 3-year period. So they basically loaned you 85,000. You have to make that 85,000 back to pay them back. And then anything over that 85,000, then you start getting some royalties. And a lot of people don't realize that. And once you sit and you do the math, you realize, I'm still, I am the talent.
Yeah.
You know.
You may never see that royalty check depending on, and this is a thing that I always talk with indie opera people who are trying to evaluate traditional over indie.
Mhm.
When you are with a major publisher, you can still be the bottom author on the totem pole. So
Yes.
even though you're with that major house, that
Mhm.
doesn't mean that they're going to spend those dollars, those coins on you.
On you.
Whoa.
On you.
I mean, are you at the same publishing house as Terry McMillan, Nylene, Nylena Singh, like Nylene Singh, I think it is. Who's at your publishing house with you?
Right.
Those
Right.
people are getting the dollars first, and you're going to get the 25
Right.
cents that's left over. Do you know what I mean? So
Exactly.
the benefit that you're getting is the fact that it's a major publisher and people check for that publisher, and so they may fall upon you.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, this is not to discourage you. This is just so that when you make your choices and you're thinking about what it is you want to do, that you're thinking about your choices.
Just to make sure that you have all of the information available to you.
Exactly.
And
Yeah,
that's
make
the
sure.
thing. There are some people who flourish under a publisher, but they also find by the time their second book, if their second book isn't doing as well as the first one, that publisher will kick you to the curb because
Mhm.
you're just wait on their roster. You're just another link in the chain that's slowing down the machine, and
Yep.
they will kick you off. And then you go through this whole self-worth thing. Oh, they didn't
Yep.
love me. They don't like me. And then you have to start all over. So I'm
Yeah.
just, I dug my heels in and I decided on the journey that I wanted to take. And I love what I do.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, guys. I mean, I think like I was brainstorming with someone earlier today about some book releases and things that we need to do that we're not doing. And I came across an author on TikTok who was doing something, and the TikTok that she was doing, it was like, what have you learned since becoming an indie author? She was like, I didn't realize it was a full-time job. And I was
Ah,
like, so
ah.
so that is one of the things that I think that be primed if you do go indie.
Mhm.
It is a full-time job. It's not
Yes.
about just writing your book and putting your book out there. It's a craft, and you need to
Mhm.
learn not only how to continue to grow in your writing, but you also need to learn about the business of book publishing and what that means and how to get that book out there.
Correct.
And we're going to talk about that some more. But before we do all that, let's talk about books. Olivia Gaines books. You said 50.
Okay.
Okay. 50 over
Okay.
9 years.
Okay.
About
Over
6
9 years.
books a year on average. Now, guys,
Yes.
y'all have heard me say this. It is a goal for me to get 4 books in a year. Olivia is working this. Okay, so let's break this down. Let's talk about these books. We know about the first one.
Okay.
All right. Tell us, before we talk about some of your new stuff, Tell us about your favorite one. And don't let that be the first one. That's cheating.
I don't
No.
have a favorite.
You don't have a favorite?
I don't have a favorite. My favorite is always what I'm currently writing.
You know, so many
Because
people
right
tell me that.
now
And
I am,
go,
yeah, it has to be, because if not, mentally you'll still be in bed with that guy. When you move to the next book, you have to be in bed with this guy.
yeah.
And I have to make sure that I know who these men are. So I have to kind of turn it off and be in the moment and be present with
Okay.
him, because I
Okay.
want to make sure I get him right. Because if I get him right, you're going to fall in love with him. And that's the thing. Every time you open the book, I want you to, this my man. Mm, no, he didn't. What his name is again?
I'm gonna give you
So
credit for
I want you to have that experience.
that.
I
Okay.
want you to have that experience, you know?
I can give you that because every time I ask an author that, they say that, and I know I have said it myself, but then I think about some of my books
Mhm.
that I'm trying to, one series that I've started, and I'm like, I really do love my main character there, and I think it actually lent itself to the way I ended up writing the series because I have him popping up in the other books because I loved him so
Okay.
much. So, and even
Okay.
though
Okay.
that whole series is based on a family of brothers, of siblings, it's like, I love the first one so much. I'm like, yeah, he's going to have to be in every single book. So I just have him popping up for, like,
Yeah.
whatever reasons. But I will give you that because I do say that myself, because it's like you said, in order to
Mhm.
give the reader the richest experience I can, I have to really feel the characters that I'm with. I'll give you that. Okay.
You
Well,
have to
then, since
fall in
we
love
can't,
with him. You have to fall in love with
you have
him.
to fall in love with them. So if we can't get
Mm.
Olivia to tell us her favorite, let's see. Tell us, have you ever put a book out there and you were scared? You were like, I don't know how people are going to receive it. But then people received it so well, it surprised you. And it like,
Every single book.
what?
Yes. I'm on Zoloft because I had gotten to the point I was just a nervous wreck.
Yeah.
Um, the
Mhm.
day before, I would just be freaking out.
Yeah.
The day
Yeah.
that it released, I would have to check to make sure that I upload the right one. Oh my God. And it was getting to be too much. So I'm like, I need some Zoloft. So book come out now. Hey, I got a book. You want to go read it?
You
I
know,
got to pay the internet. Come on, buy my
I'm
book.
telling you.
I just go, yeah, you have to get to that point because it's so much a part of who you are. Um, and people forget that we are human and we have feelings. Um, I put out one book, Blind Fate. That one terrified me. And I had a reader from the UK. She wrote me and asked me, was I okay after my surgery? And did I write my book on medication? Yes. And I'm sitting there like this. And my husband took the phone from my hand and he said, no. You sure? Cause she don't know me like that for real. I'm going and he made me put my phone down. I had to wait like 3 days before I responded to her. And she had gotten the characters confused. But that was one of the books that was a deviation from everything. She was unfaithful. She was mean. She was almost sadistic in her sexual appetite. Yeah. And people were dying. And she didn't seem to really mind. I know.
Oh, you went deep.
I
You
went
went deep.
there. I went
Yeah,
there.
but I love that. I don't want people to pick up, this probably sounds mean, but I don't want people to pick up my books and always know exactly how it's going to end. Now, you know how it's going to end because it's women's romantic fiction,
Yes.
but if you pick up something like some of the work I'm working on right now, it's true women's fiction. You don't know if that person's going to have a romance at
Hmm.
all, but I don't want you to always be like, oh, this book is going to be, oh, okay, so that's her love interest. They're going to end up together. It's going to end up this. It's going to end,
Right.
like,
Right.
I want you to, like, I don't know. I want you to go through all the emotions. I don't want,
With her,
and
yeah.
it's like, I don't know how else to explain it. Like I had someone, because we're in all these Facebook groups and stuff, and I'm in this one Facebook group, and I had released a book, and the book came to me in a dream. And when I released the book, it was an expanded dream. It ended up being women's romance, but like with a bit of fantasy in it.
Okay.
And I remember one of the women had read it, and her quote, her simple thing was, "This I did not like." And I was like, exactly. I had to text some people. I
Yes.
was like, my girl said, "This I did not like." I've never
Yes.
forgotten it. I was like, okay. She didn't tell me why she didn't like it, you know? And then it's like, I was like, oh, wait, maybe people just won't like this book. And then the other reviews started coming in, and people were like, oh, Angela Kay did a great job of, because the book is about grief. It's about surviving grief. It's about a woman who loses a husband, and it's about how she deals with that. But there's a fantasy element in it, and for those who haven't read it, I don't want to ruin it for you, but there's a bit of a fantasy in it. And and I think for anybody who has lost someone, we've all probably had that fantasy, like, oh, wonder if that person is still here, and if they are they watching me? What are they doing? He was like, can I have a whole conversation with them? And that's what I put onto the pages of that book. And so when I read the other reviews, and people were like, Angela did a great job of managing grief and like loss and da-da, I was like, thank you. They didn't say this. I do not
You like me. You really like me.
like me. I was like, thank you for understanding what I was trying to do. But but it's one of those things, because one of the women who wrote a review, one of the things that she said, she was like, I thought I knew what to expect, but I didn't. And and it sounds like that's what you did, with that book. Like, I don't want people to know exactly what to expect. I want it to be a little bit of a surprise. Why not have a little?
Yeah.
We don't need to know everything, do we? Do we need to know everything?
Right. Or my favorite, I read this and it wasn't funny. Well, they're a bunch of killers. Why is it supposed to be funny? That's what they do. Her job is to dissolve bodies, and melt fingerprints. I mean, come on, she's a cleaner. And I was just kind of like, why do I do this to myself? Why do I do this?
No, sometimes. And then, when you get that one reader who connects with what it was you were trying to do, oh my God, it's like, it was so worth it.
Most rewarding thing ever. Yeah.
It's so worth it, because when you're creating those characters, and when I'm creating them, it's like you said, you do fall in love with them. You hate them, you love them, you cry with them, you feel what they're feeling, and when you have readers who can get that, it makes you feel so happy that they are understanding what it is you want them to take away from that book.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So I tell people all the time, on the surface, you see the funny. But if you look at what I'm actually writing, there's some deep-seated issues in there. Oregon Trails, I dealt with colorism. Even in some of them, I did the paper bag, the paper bag
test.
Yes, and especially being a woman of deep complexion, there were certain guys, you didn't even think about dating because I didn't pass the paper bag test. No one wanted to have, she's gonna have dark kids, and either they automatically assume that you're angry. So a lot of the characters that I write are deep complexion women. Because I want people to know that we're not all angry, we're not all militant. I don't have a chip on my shoulder or something to prove, or I'm planning to overthrow the government. I love deep and just as hard as anybody else, and I wanted to be able to tell those kind of stories.
I love it. Yeah. Talking about, there are just so many things that I think as indie writers, we get the opportunity to explore in a way that if you were
Yes,
at a traditional house, not to say that they wouldn't let you, but
they won't let you. They won't
you
let you.
know, it's like, because, and I'll say, like, I'll speak from my experience, because, when I first started in this game, I did submit to traditional houses. And they're the
Mhm.
ones who told me, hey, you know what, Angela, you're not writing romance, you're writing women's fiction. And you know what? We don't know
Mhm.
how to market this in a certain particular way to the audience that you're trying to reach. And I'm like, you know. And so
Yeah.
those kinds of things are what started to shape me into where I went into this indie market, and was like, well, nobody, I can write whatever I want to write. I can tell
Right.
whatever story I want to tell. I can do whatever twist I want to do,
Now,
and
now, now, let me stop you. Let me stop you there. You can write whatever you want to write,
mhm,
but if you want to eat well, there's a difference. Okay, and that's what a bunch of indies don't understand.
yeah,
You can
yeah,
write.
yeah,
There's somebody. Chuck Tingle makes a fortune writing about things that he can put in his bottom. Okay,
yeah, yeah. Mhm.
you can write about whatever you want to write because there's a market for it. There's somebody who wants to
Mhm,
read it. But if you want to eat well, you want a lot of people to
mhm,
want to
mhm.
read it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is true. So, you can write
Yeah.
what you want to write because you're not with a major house, but you're
Right.
still looking for an audience or a readership.
Mhm.
So, and that's going to all go into so many different things, and we can totally talk about that, because I told Olivia, I really wanted to talk with her about marketing. So we're going to have a whole nother
Okay.
one about marketing. Maybe we'll go live so you guys can ask some questions and stuff like that as
Okay.
well.
That'll work too.
Um, but let's get back to some of Olivia's books. So we heard about Oregon Trails, but tell us about, like, I know you write a lot of series. You've done like some motorcycle clubs and some other things. Tell us about some of these books. Like, why do you, when you do the series, like, I know one reason I don't do a lot of series, because I am so impatient. When authors have series, I don't want to find out about it until you like 7 books in. So I can have a
Okay.
lot of
Okay.
books to
Okay.
read, because I'm just like, I will read those suckers, and then I'll be pissed off, like, what the, where is the next book? And so I'm like,
Okay.
I'm so
Okay.
bad with it, just because I like to read. I like to know what's happening, and I have to wait for the author to write the next book. And I don't want to be accused of stalking. So tell me, like, when you write your series, like, why do you do it? But then tell us about some of the series, tell us a little bit more about some of the books.
Now, there are some series that I've been a part of that I was like just a featured author, like the motorcycle thing. That was a project done by Zyla Turner with her Lady Guardians Motorcycle Club. Sierra London is doing like a short lunchtime chronicles. I think I did 3 or 4 in that series. Along with that, she and I did a series of endurance of a small town in California that was full of single fathers, and we were releasing on Father's Day because nobody else was doing it. And the series that are my bread and butter is my modern mail order brides. Um, and it's I'm gonna write a mail order bride book, but her name's gonna be LaQuisha, and she gonna be from Compton. And it started as a joke, and it is my best-selling series. I get to go on vacation if I release 2 of those a year. Okay, it does nice vacation. I come see you kind of vacation. Um, and then I have the technician series. Imagine John Wick getting married and having a house and a dog. I said, well, all of those men that's in the Continental, let's make me a whole crew, Southeast Construction Crew, and each one of them have like a stop sign, a traffic sign as their handle. Mr. Yield, Mr. Stop, Mr. Merge is coming out this month. I know, and it's just wrong way, one way, and it's just so much fun to write them because they're really bad men. They're assassins, they're killers, and they end up with a family. And they're like, how the heck did I end up with a family? But I like you. You cute. I'm gonna keep you. So those kind of series are fun. And of course, people are always coming back to me about the Blakemore. So I thought I would pluck one of the characters from the Blakemore series and give him a 3-book series of his own. And that's where Junior came from. But those are the kind of series that I write where the characters are all interwoven.
And those are the kind that I love. And those are the kind that make me mad
I'm sorry.
because I am so like when I find an author who has a series I love, you start with that
Mhm.
first book and you're like, you don't know what to expect, but you read through it and then you're like, okay, and now what happens? But then
Yeah.
you have to wait a year. But in the case of Olivia, since she puts out 6 books a year, we don't have to wait that long,
Well, it's usually 2 books in the series, so you get 2 per year.
2 per
So you
year.
know what you're going to get. And
Okay.
usually my series are either 7 or 10 books versus the Mail Order Brides. We're going to do all 50 states.
Okay.
And right now we're on our way to Oklahoma. We just left Maine. So with
Okay.
lobsters, bisque, and berries. And so
Yeah,
we're
I remember.
out. Yeah, we're on our
Yeah.
way to Oklahoma with sunflowers and honey. Yeah.
So how many in the Mail Order Bride have you had?
I am on 13. I'm on 13.
Mm.
Yeah. And
And
I usually like to visit the state, walk the ground where the story is. I want to taste the food. I want to hear the dialects. I want to hear the phrasing. So yeah, last year I was in Maine and having lobster rolls and all of that good stuff, and got out to the back country where the area where only 9 people live because that's where the story is set. You know, so it's pretty fun to write. You know.
I love that. I love being able to actually explore the area,
Hmm.
and like there's a lot of story ideas that I'm working on because I'm here in London and I am just like, oh, I'm like, I have like all these things that I'm like, yes, this is going to happen.
I
I
would love
love
to
that you're
see
doing that.
you do a fish out of water story.
Look,
The
yeah,
American girl
yeah.
trying to date the British guy and the norms, the way that they eat, the lingo, him saying, well, I'm going to just go pop into the tube and pop right over. And you're like, what kind of tube is he talking about popping over? Things like
Yeah,
that would be
yeah.
absolutely hilarious,
And
especially from the woman of color's perspective.
it's one of the ideas that I have been talking about is, in general, is kind of that fish out of water, but, talking about it from a lot of the areas, a lot of the things here that I'm experiencing, but also some of the other countries that I'm planning to visit.
Okay.
So keep your eyes open and your ears. You never know what you're gonna hear.
Yeah,
Um,
yes, yes.
so so tell us, um, right now, 50 books, what is the next book? Is it part of one of your series or are you going to do something
Yes.
totally new?
The next book is Mr. Merge. He's part of the technicians. He is the poisons expert.
Mm,
Uh, they call it, he got the name Mr. Merge because he just manages to merge all the sentences together at the same time. So it's like one big run on sentence. And in that big run on sentence, you have to pick out what's really important. And, he just keeps going. And you find out his relationship to the other technicians because he is the one that makes the poison darts for Mr. One Way, who is a ninja assassin. And the book I was telling you about, Blind Fate, he's the one that perfected the compound in the back of her van where she puts bodies in to dissolve. I know it's dark, but it's beautiful in a way that's kind of hard to describe because he gets a family, you know. It's not that he wanted these kids or he wanted a wife, but now I got a girl living in my house. I got to have a woman in my house because I'm not buying panties. I ain't buying panties for you. So he's like, okay, we got to get married. You wanna? And she's like, are you proposing to me like that? Well, yeah. And she's just kind of, you asshat, and there's this beautiful relationship between him and the kids because the kids are aging out of foster care. Okay. And 2 of the kids, one is deaf, the other is mute. And they found each other. and they wanted to keep them together, but nobody would take them both. So the idea was to put them with you and these other two that could help you. So yeah, I'm excited about it. It's a cool story.
Yeah, you made it sound, well, you wrote it, but you made it sound
Yeah,
so
well, yeah.
beautiful. You know, but this goes back to what you just said though, about really just kind of falling in love with the characters,
Mhm.
you know, and guys, it's like and Olivia, you can let me know about how you feel about this. But like one of the things that I always tell people that I do try to do, I do try to write things that I feel like are
Topical.
topical, but
Mhm.
also organic to me. So I try to
Right.
tell the story from my voice, right?
Yeah.
Because I
Mhm.
can't tell a story from Olivia Gaines' voice. That's your voice and the way you tell a story. So I can't read one of your books and be like, oh, I want to do that too. And try to remake what you've done, because that's not how I tell a story. But to be able to do it in a way that would be true to me so that my voice comes through, so I would love it as much as you love it. So, because when you're out there and you're, like I said, when you're doing your indie thing, trying to figure out what your voice is, I mean, I'm going to tell you, like, just write stuff and
Mhm.
see like what comes out of you and see what happens. Because it's like literally, as Olivia is talking about this book, I'm like, okay, now I gotta go and pick up the series so I can figure out what is happening before I get to Mr. Merge, but it's like, because I wait and honestly, my Kindle, I just bought a new one. I was just like, this thing is like, I have so many my friends' books on it, but I just always
Right,
pick
right.
up more and more stuff because one, I'm just gonna support the next indie author. I'm like, I bought one book, I swear I think 2 or 3 times because I
Is that
didn't, you know what
good?
I mean?
Hmm.
Because I was buying it on different things. And I'm like, I didn't even realize I could do that. Because
Hmm.
like I would buy on a phone and then I would get it on. I didn't, I'm like, why does it tell me I already have the stupid book? But I think
I know
because
Amazon will tell you, you bought this book on so and so day.
I
Yeah,
think
you
what it was
pre-ordered
is
this
I was
already.
buying it in print in Kindle because I would buy some books in
Yeah,
print and I would buy some in ebook, and
yeah,
so I
yeah.
ended up having one. I was like, why do I have so many copies of this book? So, but it's just whatever you do, I'm not
Mhm.
saying that you guys need to go out there and buy every book that you ever see, but but when you're out there and you're trying to write, I just write so you can find your voice. But I love the way that you just shared that story with us because it really does make you not only already have curiosity about Mr. Merge, but it's making you go back because now you want to see his
Yeah,
relationship with these other characters,
with the
and how they
man, because
all
the
fit
man is the
together.
first one. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. You want to see how they
yeah.
all fit together. I love that. I love that. So after Mr. Merge, are you going to do anything or are you going to take a break since it's like, you know,
Mr. Merge would be number 2 for the
okay.
year. One Way comes after Mr. Merge, and then Sunflowers and Honey comes later in the year.
So
Yeah.
then do you take a
And then
Christmas
for
break?
some reason, I started writing a Christmas story because I just wanted to write something different,
I'm like,
And
as
my
I
readers
ask,
keep
are
like,
you going to take a Christmas break? You're like, no, I'm writing a Christmas story.
I'm
Okay.
writing a Christmas story. I started writing it in March, and I'm like, why are you writing a Christmas story? I said, why not? You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so when Christmas time comes, I've got Christmas stories,
Yeah.
because they're like, well, you keep re-releasing the same Christmas stories as I put them out Christmas time. And you're like, are you gonna give us some new ones?
Look, okay, we're going to all start making requests. Okay. I say we get her to write a 4th of July story. What do you guys do? Everybody leave some comments. I'm just going to start throwing stuff out there at you, Olivia. It's like the 4th of July
Don't do
story,
that because
a
they will
Halloween story.
come for me.
You should do a
They will
Halloween
come for
story.
me.
I don't
They
know what
will
to
come
say.
for me. Don't do that.
I'm just putting
Because
my
they're like,
ideas
I,
out
I
there.
heard
If
that
you
you were going to
guys
write a
elevate
Halloween
these,
story.
suggestions, that's not on me. It's not my fault. It has nothing to do with me. I'm just putting it out there. A Halloween story and a 4th of July story. You guys do what you do.
Halloween
Okay.
and the 4th of July story. I'm going to jot that down. Halloween and 4th of July.
I think it would be so cool. I have not. Have you ever put out a Halloween story? I have never put out a Halloween story.
I usually drop something Thanksgiving weekend.
Okay.
Because I figure while the guys are watching the game, you come on here and get your laugh on, you
Okay.
know.
Okay.
Because
I've never.
yeah, because that's part of my branding. People know I can't read this in public because I'm gonna burst out laughing. And it's
Yeah.
usually there's always something in there that just makes you completely lose it.
Yeah.
And it's just the weirdest things that'll pop up in a store, and you're just like, did I read what I thought I read? And you just find yourself just laughing so hard because it's
Yeah.
an everyday thing that you never really thought about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I love that, but Olivia, you carry that with you in a lot of things. Even when we've been at events and stuff, she will take that laughter with her right from the page
Yeah.
into the event, into your presence. So
Yes.
when you guys read it on the page and you break out laughing, do
Yeah.
know that Olivia takes that with her into life, into life.
Yes.
So before we close out, before we get to Olivia's social, I promised some of you guys that we would still, pluck, let's not say steal,
Okay.
pluck
Okay.
a couple of marketing jewels
All right.
from Olivia's brain. So if you could give indie authors one tip about marketing, what would you give them? What would you say?
Author branding. Okay. Branding is, and marketing isn't what you think it is. Marketing is about branding. Branding is about color and font. Okay. I see authors, they'll have one book, the name is up top, the name is in the middle, the name is at the bottom, the name is small. When you start building your reader base, your name should be in the same spot, same font, and that same nameplate on every single book. Pick your colors. You know a book is mine by the colors. Okay. If it's blue, tealy kind of colors, you know that's me. Okay. And it's in the same font that's spaced out. So if you're going to do it, make sure that your book covers have the name in the same place, same font, and choose your colors.
And I'll back Olivia up on that, guys, because we talk about it a lot in marketing. You just have your 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 branding design or statement or whatever you want to say, and it can be very specific, like Olivia just said, spacing around logos, font colors, the marrying colors, or
Right.
that you can do it with. I mean, it can have all kinds of specifics, but because one of the things that I tell a lot of indie authors is that you can almost tell a book from an author who's just beginning and an author who's been doing it for a while, because like an author who's just starting, usually the cover art is so cluttered that you can't tell what's going on, because you want to put every element that's inside the book on the cover art, and so it'll be like you can't read the author's name because of the colors. It'll be very, very busy, and it'll just be so like when you think about that cover, you think about it in that thumbnail shape on whatever platform you're selling it on. People can't read the cover, the book title or your name. They don't, why should they stop? They just go to the next book. So that was a good one to share. Thank you for that. All right. So now
You're welcome.
Give us all of your social media. How do we keep in touch with Madam Olivia Gaines?
It is very simple. O Gaines, Ogaines. That's how you find me on TikTok, on Twitter. My website is ogaines.com. My Facebook is ogaines.com. It's easy to find me. If you want to email me, it's olivia@ogaines.com. Nice and simple.
That we have another similarity because I call it branding, my people.
Yes,
it's
people,
like
it's branding.
So people can find you.
Yep.
It's like I'm Angela K. Austin everywhere. How do we find you, Angela? Angela K. Austin. Right. Everywhere you go, I am Angela K. Austin. So love it. All right, my people. That is it. It went so fast. I'm
it
like,
did.
thank you.
So
it was like, it went so fast. And it's like, and you know, I always have to like, I'm always checking my clock and I'm always trying to be like, okay. But it's like every time I have one of these conversations, you know, especially with someone like Olivia Gaines, somebody that over the years we have seen each other, I don't even know how many times at events and, you know, and all over social media. And like I said, Olivia has dropped kernels of knowledge in my ear here and there throughout the years. And she's been, you know, like I said, I never forgot her from that first time where I stepped off of that podium or whatever we were on, stage, lift, chair, table, wherever we were. When I stepped away from it or from behind it, Olivia was one of the first people to walk up to me. And so I had never forgotten that. So thank you again, Olivia, for being a part of my tribe.
Thank you for having me.
Joining me. I appreciate it. I appreciate it because
Thank you
we
for
had to
having
get the
me.
time right, guys. Full disclosure, it's like dark out there. Y'all see the light changing on my face. My lights are all dimming. We had to figure out the right time and all this. So thank you so much for joining me, madam. And for everybody out there, YouTube world, podcast land, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation, and I hope that you will all come back and join me again soon.
Have a great one.